Merhaba, ben Deniz Genç. Welcome to my podcast, The American Dream. In 30-minute episodes, we will hear from successful Turkish professionals about their journey from Turkey to the US. My objective is to inspire young people in Turkey who consider a similar path. My guest today is Gamze Atmaca. She is the head of marketing at Ring, who made the move to the US. We'll delve into her experiences, challenges, and valuable advice for young Turkish individuals considering a similar path. Now, Gamze, you're welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Deniz.
Before we dive in, let's ask a few icebreaker questions. Ready?
Ready.
Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being I can't, I'm afraid of public speaking, and 10 being I'm a born storyteller, where would you put yourself?
I'm five. I was two. I think I'm growing. So it's a skill that you can learn. So
Hmm.
today I'm at five.
And what's one Turkish food you miss the most?
Döner.
And what surprised you the most about American work culture?
How much they think about strategy. They need to solve for the strategy first, and then they would get into the execution. But it would take really long to align on the strategy before execution. Where in Turkish culture, it's the other way around. We're very biased for action. We kind of like start from solving the problem versus strategizing. So I think striking the right balance has been interesting to solve for so far.
What was the funniest language barrier moment you encountered in the US?
We were at a meeting and we were talking about like a program, and then someone said, "Oh my God, it would be a home run." And that home run has been a very critical word to know. But unfortunately, I didn't know all the sports acronyms. All the people like American culture is very deeply rooted into sports culture, and they really bring it to the work environment as well. So, long story short, I didn't know that if it would be that we would fail and go to home, or if it would be like we would celebrate and go to home celebration. So I had to ask that question, like, what are we doing? Why are we doing home run? It turned out that it was a success. It was a baseball term, and it would be a success. So yeah, this whole like sporting and how they talk about it at work tremendously has been still a challenge, I would say.
And let's dive into the questions, shall we?
That's good.
Gamze, can you give our listeners a quick glimpse into a typical workday for you and what your role entails?
Sure. So I work remotely. My work days are long working, unfortunately. That's the one thing that I'm still trying to change after 20 years of work experience. But I wake up around 7-ish, and then I prep my kids. Then over the last 2 months, I started to get back to my treadmill in the morning. So I have a walking treadmill. I put my laptop there. So I kind of like, design my day, my important meetings, priorities for the day type of thing while I'm walking. So it takes around 30 minutes. Then I get back to my desk, start working around 9. My meetings start around 9, and then at around 6 or 7 p.m. Most of my team is in the PT time zone, so it's kind of like longer days. Then I get into dinner with the kids. We watch a family movie, and then I read a little bit and then go to bed. So it's typical day. Weekends are really different though. It's like way more inspirational.
Yeah. How did you build up to the role as head of marketing at Ring? I mean, what was the journey that you took
Uh,
specifically?
yeah, it has been a long journey. I don't know if you want to do the entire one, but basically, I got most of my education, actually all of my education back in Turkey. I am a mechanical engineer from Orta Doğu Teknik Üniversitesi, Middle East Technical University. Before I joined ODTÜ, I was an exchange student to US with a program called AFS. So that was when I actually started to be like, getting to know the American culture, where I really wanted to be back here at some point in time. Long story short, after I graduated from ODTÜ, I joined Procter& and Gamble. I spent around 16 years with P&G, 10 years in Turkey, and then P&G moved me to US. This is why I'm currently at Cincinnati. And then I've spent another like 6 years with P&G, leading some global brands, primarily for marketing. And then 2-ish years ago, a friend of mine called from Amazon. They're like, there's an amazing opportunity at Alexa smart home. So I joined Amazon through Alexa. And after around like 1.5 years, there's this big opportunity came up from Ring, where they were looking for structuring the product marketing function at Ring. So I joined Ring around like 9 months ago. That's been my journey.
And to get to the US, I know that like PNG isn't the only route, but would you recommend like joining a company like PNG to come to the US like nowadays in 2024?
Yes, for sure. So there is a fundamental kind of change management that happens over the years. What's kind of advised is that don't change everything at once. Don't change geographies, don't change your function, don't change your job, don't change everything, because then most probably you're not going to be able to set up yourself for success. This is why keeping a few things consistent while you're making that much of the fundamental changes are going to be really important. The beauty in my case was really with, the change was through the same company. So at least I knew the culture, I knew the expectations, what success looked like in the same company. So I would just definitely suggest that whatever you're doing, if you can hold on to at least one thing that you can keep as consistent, that would be most probably bringing you a little bit more of a success to really make that transition a successful one. It's not always the case. Obviously, we do have different opportunities. So in those cases, I would really lean into the friendship, the social environment. How could you be really getting the right support model? But if you do have the opportunity, keep things a little bit like consistent for yourself.
And when did the idea of moving to the US first take root? Was it a gradual process or a sudden decision? And like what factors ultimately led you to take the leap?
Yeah, my family really was a big influence while I was growing up. I would say even at my very early childhood days, my mom really had this dream. So I'm kind of like making it a real for my mom living in the US. I guess she's not here with me. But then she seeded the idea to start with. And then as I was alluding earlier, I became an exchange student thanks to her really support with that, because I was 17 years old. And think about the time that you don't have cell phones, we don't have that much like wide internet. Even the emails were kind of new. So I moved came to US, spent 1 full year at a family that I didn't know at all, and went to high school at US. So it was an interesting journey. And then I came back. But that was the moment that I really felt like, okay, that I could really, feel that US could have been a home for me. Key things about US, just to iterate a little bit further, because I'm also seeing some of my friends' journeys, wherever they're at, let's say in European countries. Obviously, it depends on where you're at, but like in US, because of the language being in English, that people don't need to be changing their language, their native language, just to kind of like be friends with you. Like it's a big driver. Or because of the diversity, how it's basically a mix of cultures. You can really make it home, after depending on who you are. But like for me, I guess it was around like the 5-year mark that I start to be like, yes, this definitely feels home.
And I don't know too much about exchange programs, but did you have to pay a lot of money to come to the US? And like how did it work? And do you recommend it to like
The
the
exchange
young high
programs,
schoolers?
yeah, I definitely do. Previously, years back, while it was again like throughout our parents' times, which I guess like it was 30, 40 years ago, those programs were not enrolling in cost. So it seems like it was basically like a program that you would be hosting a student, and your kids would be going like to another country. In nowadays, it comes with a cost, but it kind of covers with your flight and insurance type of things as well. It's around, I would say, like $10,000, I guess. I would definitely recommend to take the opportunity to really kind of get yourself into a different culture and become like almost a global citizen. There are some other programs like through some other communities, etc., that might not be enrolling any cost to it. But you could also host a student, which is also super interesting. I know we're not talking about that, but like getting the exposure to the other cultures is the point. So you can either host or get yourself out of Turkey to start experiencing the other cultures.
And you mentioned that you spent 16 years at P&G in Turkey, right?
Yes.
Do you think that was, too long for you? Were you trying to move along to the US every single year at that point? Or like, what was that 16 years in Turkey like? Were you just pushing for the US move, or were you just like, what were you doing?
Yeah. So I spent 16 years and 10 years in Turkey and then 6 years in US with P&G. P&G really offers a lot of, like, P&G as well as other multinational companies offer opportunities abroad. I wasn't necessarily pushing for that, but I was waiting for the right opportunity to come. And when you get to a level, basically the local markets, what they can offer for you gets limited. So like you're eventually actually up for some other international assignments. You would just need to be like making the right connections, waiting for the right move. In my case, in P&G, actually, what happens is normally they would be kind of moving you to their headquarters in Europe, which is in Geneva. So that was kind of what was expected. But because of a connection that I had, I was offered to come directly to US. So I'm not going to get into the details of the story, but the point here is really making the right network and leverage that network on behalf of you when you need it. So what was happening in my case is I got to meet with this whatever level executive at some point in time while that person was visiting Turkey, and somehow like kept that relationship. It was just a country visit. It wasn't meant to be anything, but occasionally I just like checked in with him, sent whatever like Christmas notes, etc. And then after some while, I happened to be seeing like an open role in US, which didn't happen to be the role that I moved, but it was kind of like the driver occasion, I would say. I approached to him and wanted to pick his brain. And then he actually kind of brought me all the other things. He was like, I didn't know that you were interested in moving to US. I thought, you would be kind of going to Geneva. Like what's kind of making you get interested in the roles in US? So anyhow, it kind of opened up that whole opportunity. So finding the right people, nurturing those relationships and leveraging them on behalf of you is super critical, specifically where you're making such a drastic change in your life.
Yes. How did your Turkish identity influence your career path in the US? Did you face any challenges related to the cultural background or expectations? And, how did you leverage, as you said, your heritage?
Yeah. So I would say, first of all, diversity is a big theme, right? Like it still is. When I first moved here in US, it was still super big, like let's say 10 years ago. And it's kind of like in the book, it helps, if you're actually coming from a different nationality, if you are a woman, if you are an engineer and working in marketing. So all of those have been helping me out on paper because people really do track of like scorecards and stuff. On the flip side of things, it's actually a little bit really on the books, I would say. Like in reality, it's a huge challenge to be, coming from a different country and then establishing yourself from scratch in an organization that you don't know. So the challenges that I've faced were actually, spreading to multiple different themes. But the first one I would say is really this whole like, strategy versus execution that I was alluding earlier. I think maybe it's changing right now in our education system, but in Turkey, I do believe that we were not really raised to be storytellers. We were really raised to be great executors. We do memorize quite well. We do execute quite well. We get into action. We solve problems. But we don't necessarily think about like this whole big picture strategy, how to really change things. Why am I doing this? Like I'm doing it, but like why am I doing it? Hasn't been really a part of our, at least my education system, unfortunately. Here in US, it's really the complete different. And people really kind of like start with the big picture. What are we solving for? So that adjustment is one part, I think, that like cultural piece. The second one is, I was also talking a little bit about like the importance of network, but coming to a different country, even with the same company, you're basically losing all of your core, sponsors, people that you know, people that you can trust, people that you can get the information. Navigating the organizations is a challenge. So long story short, building that from scratch really requires time, effort, deliberate approaches. So that's another piece that I think has been interesting and challenging.
Yeah, yeah. And did your Turkish education in ODTÜ or like your Turkish education as like for execution help you in the American workforce at all? And like what were the biggest adjustments you had to make?
Yeah,
Like specifically, yeah.
yeah, for sure. I was very lucky to be really getting a very strong education. I first went to in Anadolu Sesi, Gazi Anadolu Sesi in Ankara, and I got into ODTÜ. Throughout that career, obviously, what was really fundamental in terms of like getting the right education was, we learned the analytical thinking. That was, very heavy math and science based education system really gives you this, uh, become make you become like a fast thinker, again, problem solver. This whole analytical thinking piece has been very critical. So I think that fundamental piece helps you out not just in US, but throughout your whatever you do in your life in Turkey or in US as well. So that was one skill that I think really helped me out, even like navigating this whole strategy versus execution dilemma.
And was there truly a moment when you felt arrived in the American career in America? And how did you find your voice and establish yourself in a potentially unfamiliar work environment?
Yeah, there was definitely a moment. I would say there are still some moments, so it's not like once and done. I would say like most probably in like the third year mark or something, you start to really understand, specifically in marketing, I could tell, you start to really understand the customer, you start to really understand the media environment, start to understand the retailers, and then all of that, like connecting the dots really happen. So that was one thing that I'm like, okay, I do know who am I talking to, or like the challenges or the differences versus all the like market changes. That was one. The other one was, interestingly, I would say like even recently, when I actually first joined Amazon, Amazon has leadership, like something called leadership principles. It's almost like a
Yeah.
criteria that they're assessing you to get into their, even interview process, as well as what we do use almost every day. There's 16 of them. One of them is called disagree, agree, and commit, which is super interesting because in my past career, people would really agree a lot. People would really like, agree to the leadership in the room. They would kind of like wait for the most experienced people, most senior people to speak to, and then they would kind of like build their thinking around it. Whereas in Amazon, you actually are encouraged to be sharing your voice and disagree if you don't agree with that, and like bring a new thinking to the table, which is I think super unique, and that kind of enabled me to find my voice once again, because there were so many different things that I was thinking and I was struggling to really bring my full authentic self, specifically to those like very senior leader organizational conversations. And when you do that, like that authentic self, with all of your past background, with very different thinking, that really accelerates you. That really kind of opens up this, yes, there's like something different, there's something new, there's something fresh. And if you can really kind of build a plan around it, that really resonates quite a bit. So I would say like this whole a company's leadership principle really kind of like made me feel that, okay, I have a voice, it's very valued, it's very diverse and different, but this is kind of like making me making me successful.
You touched base on how you built a support network, right?
Yes.
And how did you find your community and friends in the US? Was it like a Turkish community? Was it like what was it like?
Yeah. Specifically on the social side, I guess, that you're trying to probe a little bit more, which you guys were a part of it, which I was very blessed. that you were a part of it. But there was a community called an organization called CTAA, which was Cincinnati Turkish American Association. That really, I think that kind of like organizations really do happen across the US. We were lucky because all these diverse people, but you could be like really be friends with them if you were to be in Turkey as well, like with the similar backgrounds, but like there's this diversity, but also the similarities as well that really connects you quite fast.
Yeah.
So I was actually lucky that because of this whole PTA association being here and really bringing the Turkish community whenever there are some bayrams, there are some like national holidays, which is also super important, not just for ourselves, but also for our kids, because they don't know what they don't know. So having the flag up there and seeing those kind of like moments, which is one of them being like 23 Nisan, for instance, they really do learn quite a bit and they kind of like get the inspiration and enjoy being both Turkish as well as American. So that was one example, but you need to be basically, if you don't have that, you need to be putting a lot more deliberate approach. But in my case, I guess I was lucky.
Did the network change when you like compared to the first time you came and the like right now? Like when the first time you came was it like all Turkish and then now it's like more shifted to American? Like what's the how'd you say it changed or didn't change?
I think it really changes. In my case, I think it's not necessarily the mix of like American Turkish has changed that much. I think it's still striking the right balance. But what I would say has changed is how much effort that I was putting at very earlier times to really build that community. So it's funny even to kind of like reflect back and think about it. But you would almost make a list of people that you see the potential, which is weird because, you know, like I was here most probably while I was 35 years old or something. And then like making that thinking is a little tiring, you know, like you had a huge community, you had like a lot of very dear friends back in Turkey, and you're leaving them, coming to US, and then starting from scratch, making a list is kind of painful. But you have to do it because
Yeah.
you made that choice to be coming here. So long story short, at first it was like random, wild. It was a lot of people that you would be like either hosting or going to parties with or whatever. But then you kind of like get into that like list of, okay, here are the people that I do know that I really like, and then start investing on it. But again, most probably it was like heavier on the Turkish side, even at the starting point, and it's still the same case. But we had still very good like American friends, you know, like that we have built over the last 8 years that we're here.
And lastly, did you have
Yeah.
a guiding hand during your US career journey, like a really influential model or like a really influential network? Or did you pave the way yourself, your journey yourself?
Yeah, I think I paved my destiny. One example that a long time ago a mentor shared with me about like how could you be actually building your network or sustaining your network is through an Excel file, which is again, you know, you're going through like so much of a transition that you need to be finding your own tools, whatever works for you. But that guy traveled the world quite a bit, and the way that he was managing that, because also he was switching gears all the time, so it was kind of like really hard to be keeping track of people that he knew as well. So he had an Excel file with all the people that he thought that it could be a good part of his network. He would be refreshing that file every week,
Yeah.
and then there would be some, you know, columns that would be, you know, the family, like the kids' names being written there, what that person does, how can that person be a help moving forward for you? So it's a little bit of a brain dump as well. And then there is the suggested frequency of meeting or sending him a note type of thing. So like for each person, he would be really deliberately building that network. So like, you know, in Christmas, like Christmas cards, in whatever time, he would be just like sending like a quick quarterly a text message to send that and like check in with him. Over time, obviously, like you need to be finding whatever is authentic to yourself. Sometimes like those type of tools might be really pushing the limits a little bit. But over time, if you would really keep up with a few people and then when you need their help versus the other way around, like randomly reaching out for help, like it doesn't always work. But like after building that networking community, reaching out and like just kind of like asking for help is really has been working. So I think I've kind of implemented a similar approach when I first joined. And the other thing that I've said, whoever I was meeting with, because you need to be kind of sending in one-on-one request or a lunch request or a coffee request, whoever I was meeting with, I would be getting an extra name from that person. Here's my need. I'm actually new here. I'm trying to build my network. Here's my background. I'm very passionate about like doing this. And this is why I wanted to approach to you just to kind of build my network. But who else do you think would be a help for me that I should be connecting? So at least, I would be getting one extra name from each of my conversations that I could kind of evolve my network. So those are the two things that I've tried to do to really paint it from scratch.
Yeah, sounds like an amazing strategy. I might even do it myself in the future. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, definitely.
That's really great. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me in this podcast and sharing your journey with our listeners. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. I'm really wishing the best for all the new talents that are interested to be making their way to here. And I have my LinkedIn network, Gamze, Atmaca. If in case anyone wants to be reaching out and connect, I'm happy to do so. Right. Thanks for driving this, Dennis. It's such a great initiative.
Thank you for joining. Have a good day.
Have a great day. Bye.